Legendary actor, activist, and director Sidney Poitier has died. Poitier was the first black performer to win an Academy Award for Best Actor. He was 94. The actor was revered for his work on and off screen. Poitier utilized his platform to champion the civil rights movement. His roles on screen challenged the racial norms of the time. The son of a Bahamian tomato farmer, Poitier moved to New York City at 16 to pursue a career in acting. 7 years later, he appeared in his first film, No Way Out. His role in the 1963 movie Lilies of the Field would earn him his first Oscar for Best Actor. Entertainment Tonight co-host Kevin Frazier joins us now to talk more about Poitier's life and legacy. Sidney Poitier's career spanned over 5 decades. Tell us a bit about his legacy and what his passing means for the entertainment industry as a whole.
You know, Nikki, when you talk about Sidney Poitier, you talk about an African-American man of elegance, grace, and someone who challenged the racial stereotypes of the time. Don't forget, he came to the United States and was part of the American Negro Theater Company, and from there worked his way up. He traded his acting lessons for his janitorial services when he first got there. But when you talk about him, he is the most significant African-American actor in cinematic history. And you also have to think about him as being the oldest. He was the oldest living Oscar winner. So he is the one connection he was one of those connections that we had to the golden age of cinema. He really was a man who changed the way that Black people looked at themselves when they saw him and what he did on screen.
Kevin Frazier, as we've said, became the first black performer to win an Academy Award for Best Actor at a time when segregation was still legal in the United States. How groundbreaking was it when he won his award, and how do you think it changed the landscape of entertainment moving forward?
Well, you know, I talked to Oprah Winfrey about that moment, and she talked about being a little girl sitting in the segregated South, watching that moment and watching this Black man walk up and receive that Oscar. And she says it was so profound. It was so mind blowing. And at that moment, she realized that she could do anything. And that's the thing. And you also think about, you know, the roles he played, what a pivotal year 1967 was for those 3 important roles and those 3 important movies he played. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, the Heat of the Night, and of course, To Sir with Love. And if you remember The Heat of the Night, he is a detective from Philadelphia coming down to investigate a situation in the South, and he's dealing with a small town Southern sheriff, and the Southern sheriff smacks him, and he smacks him back. And at that time, you hadn't seen a Black man challenge a white man like that. And also when he tells Carol O'Connor in that movie, "You call me Mr. Tibbs." It's just a seminal moment. And then you turn around to Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And here's this elegant doctor who is now engaged to a white woman and her family trying to digest what's happening. It was just these roles that changed the way that African Americans were looked at. And that was who Sidney Poitier was.
He had such a legacy. And Kevin, you touched on this a little bit, but if you can tell us a little more about how Poitier used his platform to champion civil rights.
Sure. You know, the civil rights movement, while so many people were a part of it, it needed money, and it needed people on large platforms to champion it. And that's where Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, those folks stepped in to help fund those moments and also to lend their voices to other people who might not have listened initially. You need star power when you're trying to change the world. And Sidney Poitier wasn't afraid to step to the forefront and say, I am challenging these people, their way of life, and the laws of the land right now. And I'm also willing to put my money where my mouth is. And you saw it throughout his life and his career. I mean, let's not forget, he was the ambassador to Japan for the Bahamas. Throughout his life, he did things that were groundbreaking and different, and you wouldn't have expected for a man who came from the Bahamas and was a janitor when he first got here to the United States. But when you talk about the civil rights movement, and it is very clear if you ever watch the documentary Eyes on the Prize, without Harry Belafonte, without Sidney Poitier, the civil rights movement might have run out of money.
What an incredible man and what a legacy. Kevin Frazier, by the way, nice to meet you virtually, and thank you for your time.
Nikki, great to meet you. And he was an incredible man who changed the world. He will be missed, but never forgotten.
Thank you.